to have with us Senator Ann Millner, who will provide some keynote remarks as we get started. And so I would like to share with you a little bit about Senator Millner, if she'll give me just a minute to give you a little bit of her background. I have to do just a little. Okay, so Senator Millner represents District 5. She was elected to the Senate in 2015, and she currently chairs the Economic Development and Workforce Services Committee, Higher Ed Appropriations, the School Security Task Force, and the Senate Ethics Committee. Senator Millner was born in Middlesboro, Kentucky, and raised in Clarksville, Tennessee. Her academic journey includes a bachelor's degree in education from the University of Tennessee, where we were just lucky enough to get our new athletic director from, and so great institution. A master's from Southwest Texas State and a doctorate from BYU. She is distinguished as a former Regents Professor of Health Administration and served as president of Weber State from 2002 to 2012. Senator Millner's legislative efforts are driven by a deep commitment to enhance Utah's education system and foster economic development. She has championed policies aimed at strengthening workforce preparation, improving public and higher ed, and bolstering aerospace defense industries, as well as expanding access to affordable health care. It is our great pleasure to have Senator Millner here with us today, and we welcome her remarks.
Thank you all. I don't stay in one place very well, so I apologize for that. Let me tell you just really briefly, thank you very much for that kind introduction. It's been an interesting journey for me. Most of my career has actually been in higher education around the country, but mostly at Weber State University. And I say I grew up at Weber State. I came in health professions, which is my background, and I was a coordinator for outreach education at Weber State, and then I became an associate dean, I became an assistant vice president, I became a vice president, and then I became president of the university. So I've had a very long career in higher education and had the fortunate experience of being able to grow up in one institution. Probably colors a little bit about how I think about things, I will say that. But when I came to Weber State, I'd spent lots of time at research universities. I love you, you are important, but not all schools need to be R1 research universities. We can't afford it to start with. And the other is that needs to be a focus and a mission-driven piece of certain universities, and certainly Utah State and the University of Utah are those institutions in the state. But one of the things that we need to drive everything that we do in this state is around talent. And that talent, we never know where that talent's going to pop up and where it's going to be developed. And then who's going to hand it off to the next and the next and the next. So I really believe it's extremely important to have a strong higher education system in this state that prepares talent, that also supports community engagement and interacting with our businesses and our community, and finally, that advances research, which has kept this country out on the leading edge. So just want you to know a little bit about my perspective through this journey. And I think we have to make sure that that is something that we maintain our edge on. You're talking about right now how you create an ecosystem. An ecosystem that's in the past has been pretty focused in some ways on thinking about federal research, right? Many of you probably as faculty have had federal research grants. You might have had some nonprofit grants, et cetera. But we all know that world is changing. But we also know that there have been benefits to this country as a result. We have the most advanced economy in the world because we've developed the talent and the research capabilities to be able to keep us ahead of everyone else. But that world is changing, and I believe that states are going to have to be more focused on the role that states play in it and the role that we build in terms of building collaborations in our communities between our universities and our businesses. And it's just a different way of thinking about it, but I think we can still be as strong because of it. So first of all, let's say we're doing really well in Utah. We are #1 in innovation output. That was in a recent study that just came out. I have to admit, I went, wow, I didn't know that. We are, for 3 straight years, we have been #3 in overall in economic development, but best state economic development. That is no small measure. Let me tell you that I came to this state 43 years ago, and when I came here, we had strong educational systems. We had an economy that had really focused on the canneries and all were moving out. The defense industry was going down because it was post-World War II. And our young people were graduating from our institutions and having to leave the state to get good jobs. It was a must. I never want to go back there. I want this to be the place that has the jobs, that has the opportunity, both in terms of thinking about it from research, entrepreneurship, doing research in commercialization in companies. I want us to be strong in all elements of that. But that's not going to happen by chance, and we're here not by chance. Okay? I'm not going to talk about all of that history, but I do want to say we've done some things right. Over those years, we've said we have to have a strong, diversified economy. We have to be thinking about clusters. We can't do it all, but we can do things that support ecosystems around industry clusters. So things like life science, tech, advanced manufacturing. Now FinTech has kind of joined in this in the States as we look at that, as we think now about energy. As we think about all of those different clusters, we have to create those ecosystems around them. And it requires the work of all of us to make that happen, and we just see it as very vital to what we do. So from my standpoint, if that really is, there are 2 goals. One goal is to develop world-class talent. And if you don't have talent, I don't think you get there. And that world-class talent comes by saying, how are we going to have strong higher education systems in the state that allows us to create the talent that's necessary? And I'm not just talking about PhD programs. I'm talking about master's programs. I'm talking about bachelor's programs. I'm talking about technical education. I cannot talk to any industry out there who doesn't say, well, let me tell you, I need some engineers that can do this. I need some life science folks, researchers who can do this. But let me tell you, I need people down on my manufacturing floor that have the technical skills to run these machines and to maintain them. And if I don't have that, it's not going to work. So we have to think much more about this continuum of developing talent. And then we have to think about how are we going to innovate and commercialize the work that we're doing in the state. So kind of 2 goals. And that means we are going to have to be bolder. We're going to have to be more agile. And we're going to have to align the work that we're doing, which is why I really appreciate what you're doing today of bringing industry and researchers and faculty and others together in a room to kind of talk about how can we work together, how can we kind of move forward, how can we take projects that are in midstream and maybe not just all that start at the beginning of the research pipeline. It took Mario Capecchi, I'm sure, 25 years to do the DNA analysis that he did and bring it forward to now we talk about precision genomics and all the applications of that. And now we're overlaying AI on top of that, and we're starting to kind of begin to recreate genes. Think about, the world that none of us ever really expected. But that started with some very basic research that probably some legislators would have said, why are we doing that? Okay, so part of what you also have to do is help connect the dots. How does this basic research apply to the potential applications that are going to be able to drive innovation and commercialization? So that people are thinking about the continuum of that. I understand your commitment to creating knowledge, but others want to know beyond that how we're going to apply it. And you have the opportunity to help do that. Starts with talent. When I came into the legislature about 10 years ago, we started with a group called Talent Ready Utah. That began, in essence, with this little journey that said, okay, let's start by doing an aerospace project for high school students that get them some experience in the aerospace industry while they're still in high school. Pretty simple little project, not easy to do because you got to get them cleared, you got to be able to get them in the company, you got to make sure that there's no liability for the company, you name it. But it was important in terms of thinking about workforce. And then we said, what about apprenticeships? And then so we started doing apprenticeships. And as you all know, we have a company from Switzerland who is now here that helped us start our apprenticeship programs, and now they're expanding. And now we are part of 6 states that are leading some of the work in apprenticeships in all fields. It's amazing. It's things that we haven't thought about before. And then we said, we went to South Carolina, and in South Carolina they were saying, we have a bunch of folks that are coming off the farms, but we can't drive what we need in our industry unless we can give them some skills that make them hireable. So we started some short-term job training programs that the company defined, here's what we need them to have, and we will guarantee them an interview if they complete this short-term program. And then we started saying, what about the other end of this spectrum? And we began to do some research, and actually getting long-term job projections is tough. Department of Labor data is all backward. So what you're doing when you're making projections is you're making it on the last 5 years to predict the next 5 years. That really works well in the world we're in today. So we began to say, we've got to create these connections with industry. Yes, that's important work, but we've got to create connections with industry. We've really got to understand what people's needs are. Because in my role as president, what people would come up to me and say is, President, I need 200 more engineers for my aerospace and defense companies in my region tomorrow. And I would say, that's at least a 5-year runway, guys. We have to think to the future. We can't just wait till the demand is here today. And that's what we're trying to do now. Trying to do a better job of predicting that by not only using job data, but also other sources of data, also creating these connections with our companies And it's interesting because companies would say, I'm not sure I want to tell you what my needs are in 5 years or what I think they are, because you might hold me to that. And I thought, I just want to know what you think they are. Cannot respond if you're not willing to share. The runway doesn't work that way. Preparation doesn't work. So we're doing a much better job now of understanding that. So now we have, part of Talent Ready Utah, we've got 650 Utah partners, both government and business partners in this effort. We've impacted educational programs for 45,000 higher education students across technical education to higher education, worked with 550 industry. We have some wonderful industry advisory groups that are really helping us at the state level in conjunction with what's being done on a regional level. And we now have learned that we have to move back into the K through 12 pipeline and create partnerships and pathways there. So now we're starting to work on first credential program. How do you get a first credential before you even leave high school? Something that's part of a long-term pathway that you can continue your education. You could also go to work if you want to. It's your choice. It's not college or career, it's college and career, because at some point in time, that's gonna happen. Let's build the pipelines that facilitate that. So then we started to say, what are the accelerators that are gonna take us to the future? I will just quickly say right now what we're focused on, and you're not gonna be surprised, is energy, AI, and something we're calling deep tech. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story about particularly in deep tech. About 4 years ago, we did our first deep tech grants, and you might say, what is deep tech? But for me, deep tech was thinking about it more than just it's a immunology program or a genomics program. It was, what does it take for us to be able to actually be the innovators and the creators of knowledge that has the ability to drive innovation and commercialization. And I went down to several groups, just kind of said, okay, it was a life science group, a technology group, an aerospace and defense group, said, tell me what you think. And let me tell you what I heard. It was, yeah, I mean, even then, 4 or 5 years ago, it was, we're gonna have to have AI, but it was also, we're gonna have to have blended degrees. We're gonna need somebody, yes, who understands health professions, who maybe is a physician or an MD, PhD, but we need them to also have data analytic skills. Because if they don't have that, they're not gonna be able to drive the depth of research and knowledge that we need. And we need to be able to think about this very differently. The second thing that industry told me was, you must do this with us. I don't care how great your faculty are, so I'm gonna get in trouble here, faculty. I don't care how great they are, I don't care how advanced they are. Things are changing so fast in our industry now that we need higher education, academic departments to work with us, to be able to let us help provide some of the experiences that they could not possibly provide because they are cutting edge. They want to help, they want to be out there, and I think your students deserve that. So thinking about how you do more of that at a deeper level, and through whatever kinds of experiences. And one of the things we're doing as a result of that engineering is we've set up a program to be able to do, I call them co-op experiences because they're longer than just an internship. But at the University of Galway in Ireland, I saw what they were doing. The companies were talking about it, said, we don't want these students for 3 or 4 months. We want them for 8 or 9 or 10 months because we want some value out of them too. And that's how we're going to get that. So, which means we have to rethink things, but they're willing to contribute and to be a part of that. So, just an important thing for us to continue to do. And then Nucleus was set up to be really a force multiplier. Nucleus is a organization, and the Nucleus folks who are here, because there are a bunch of you here. Raise your hands. Okay. They can tell you more about this than I can tell you. But Representative Moss has been pushing this in the legislature and then eventually began to run it. And the idea of Nucleus is that we create the partnerships, we create the support systems that allow us to take research that is ready to be commercialized, and we provide the support systems that support students and faculty in being able to do that, and we do it across the system in collaboration with everyone. And that we're really creating this ecosystem that can support it and help people commercialize. And there's a $40 million fund, by the way, that has been in 16 projects have been invested in biotech and AI, in energy, and in life science, to say, we're also investing some money in this, and 5 of those have already gotten follow-on funding. Okay, so another support system here to say, this isn't just about the education and the talent development side. This is about trying to create a system for helping us to move this forward. We want to be efficient in this, we want to be innovative, but we know that collaboration is key and central to that. We have to collaborate in these efforts in order to be able to do it. And I believe we need to make investments as a state to help do it, particularly in the world that we're in right now. We have to make investments as a state to help support this work. So that we as a state can stay number one. We can't do that without beginning to make more of these investments. So they have kind of 3 parts of this. They have a lab where they're involving students in helping solve problems. We are really trying to equip researchers and help them facilitate through the startup stage and be able to get to begin the early commercialization work, something that can't happen in a different environment. Angel investors even aren't going to do this if it's not developed far enough along, that we can engage students in this process, not only on the innovation side, but also to engage them on the policy side. What's it going to take policy-wise to help us stimulate and support this work? So our goal in this state is to keep us number one, to build world-class talent, to use the collaboration that we have as a state to continue to build on that, to facilitate and accelerate commercialization in this state, to make sure we're driving innovation and that we lead as a state. And we're going to keep working at that. We don't in any way feel like we have all the answers. We're still continuing to work on projects that say, what else do we need to do? Where other investments do we need to make? And we're going to keep doing that. But what we need from you, all of you collectively, is the collaboration and the effort and the helping people focus on the outcomes. Because our folks want to know, well, what's the outcome of this investment? Okay? And if I can talk about outcomes, then it's easier for me to support a case for you to get the support you need. So we need your help in doing that. Keep on doing it. We're proud of the work of Utah State University, proud of the work of the University of Utah. I have to be ecumenical here. But I just want you to know how important that is, and we wouldn't be number one in the United States without you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Is this working now? Is this mic working?
Yeah.
Yeah, super. Okay. Thank you again, Senator, for those opening remarks. Very inspirational. We're going to have a terrific research summit here today, and I just want to share that this summit has two components today. For those of you who regularly attend, we're going to have our typical panel discussion. And as I explained to Senator Millner earlier, the panel discussion is meant to focus on the forefront. Research summits are about where are we right now and what kinds of challenges and thoughts should we be putting forth to address really current issues. And so we're going to start with our panel discussion today, and I would invite our panelists to come up. As our panelists get seated, I will share with you that after the panel discussion, what we're going to see is a pitch competition sponsored by Nucleus. That pitch competition will involve, I believe it's 6 Utah companies pitching for prizes their latest ideas. And so those are very short 3-minute pitches, so it will be very fast-paced. And I think it will be quite the event to see. And so with that, I'm going to turn this to our panel discussion, and I go stand at the back of the room for this, by the way. And so let's get started, and then I'll go to the back with having you each introduce yourself and share a brief overview of why you're here and what your work is related to.
So it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Linda Cabrales, and I am the director of Nucleus Grow. So Senator Millner talked a little bit about the Nucleus Institute. We're part of that. We used to be part of the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and with some legislation that was put into law just this earlier session, we became part of Nucleus. And so that's who I am, that's what I do. We work with small businesses and researchers to find non-dilutive funding. So most of that is through the Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Program.
Thank you. So my name is Mike Young, and I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center up here in northern Utah. And the Small Business Development Center is part of a state and nationwide program. We provide management consulting services as an outreach to the business community. At the federal level, our program is supported by the SBA, and at the state level through the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And we work with a wide variety of different companies in the community, and we are actually part of the university, right? We're an outreach program, and so we're much more community facing than maybe some of the other people here. But anyway, I'm glad to be able to be here on the panel today.
Thanks, Mike. Christian Iverson. Probably the first and foremost, the most important thing today is I'm a true Aggie, and take great pride in that. Probably about 6 years ago, my wife and I kissed on the A outside of my office. But I grew up in Missouri farm boy, came here to USU, followed my dad, who got a job at Water Research Lab. And so we've been here and been wonderful Aggies for a long time. Studied here biology, biochemistry, and business. Got my MBA here, and then with one of our great entrepreneurs here in the Valley, Rex Benlove, started a company called Quantus Biosciences. Ran that and co-founded that. Ran that for about 10 years. And about 14 years ago, came here to Utah State in the tech transfer office, and until just a couple months ago, was the director. And now I started a new position as entrepreneur in residence, focused on a handful of university technologies to take them and drive more impact. As Senator Millner talked about, driving real impact and having these technologies in the market, available for sale. And so for the next year, I'll be focused on a handful of these technologies. And part of that will be a co-founder of one of the companies, Mixtech Bio, to take one of our hagfish technologies out into the market.
Hi everyone, my name is Charlie. I am the senior associate at the Nucleus Fund. So that was the $50 million or $40 million component, that the Senator was talking about. I'm also on the side a PhD student at the U studying neuroscience. I'm much younger than everyone else here on the panel, but I hope I can share some useful insights from the VC perspective. So honored to be here. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll get started. And so the way this works with the panelists, you have one mic, and and it may mean you have to pass it down. We don't have to go in order every time, but I'm just going to put up a question and ask one of you to start. And so, as Senator Millner pointed out, Utah is a place that is really known for strong innovation and creative startup culture. Part of that we want to expand upon is how we can link small businesses and universities in these type of tech transfer commercialization activities. And so from your perspective, how can we build from where we are now that interface?
Do you want me to start?
You could, anybody can
Okay.
start.
So I think from my perspective, the most important thing is bridging the gap between academics and industry. You all as academics have extremely useful skill sets in problem solving and extremely novel technologies that can be very useful in industry. However, a lot of times these never make it out of the lab. And I think a problem with that is that industry doesn't know what you're developing. And so it is only through talking to people in your local community that you can actually identify where you can deploy your solutions. And along those lines, I think a lot of times as academics, we fall in love with our solution rather than a specific problem. And industry is really on the opposite or the antithesis of that, where they are falling in love with a problem and looking for any way to solve it. So you all have created magnificent solutions, but you just need to find the right problem. And it's only through bridging that with your industry partners and your local business community that you can find a way to deploy your really useful technologies into the public.
Thanks, Charlie. There's lots of ways, I think, to innovate and to kind of create these relationships. Just from experience, there's a great company that's sponsoring research and hiring students to work in the lab. They're sponsoring research to develop a new innovative cell culture media to grow artificial food. And so these students are getting that real world experience. The companies are getting access to the innovative ideas overseen by a faculty member who has decades of experience in this area and getting access to university facilities and research and capacities. And so this, I think the question I love is how do they do it together? How does academia work with industry? And it's not just industry, faculty member reaching out to industry to find out what they need. It's also industry reaching into the university. We would open up these doors to have these conversations and to have these opportunities to talk about what are the real needs, to figure out what the problems are that need to be solved, and leveraging what the university has to develop solutions, and not just research papers, but solutions to problems and take those out to the market.
So one of the ways that I would look at this is that the great strength of the business community is that they understand the markets, right? They understand what the market wants. And I think many times as researchers, it's easy to focus on areas of interest, and those may not always coincide effectively with what a market wants or really help to solve a market problem. And so I think of the research community within the university as you reach out to industry, you can really work with these people that understand the markets effectively in order to find the problems that both interest you and have needs to be met within the marketplace. And I think this is something that in working with industry on a daily basis, I see there, if you're running a business or managing a business, your day-to-day is just crazy, right? People are constantly bombarding you with different needs and challenges, and so, but you're always looking for opportunities as well. And so I think that's where just reaching out to companies within your area of expertise could provide some great opportunities to find new areas to focus on and ways to develop novel technologies that have great market application. And I've seen some of the best businesses that we've worked with. What they've done is they go directly to customers and they try and build solutions for those customers. And that is something that you could do working through industry, because industry already has those connections to customers within the marketplace.
Okay, I'll be quick. I was just going to say, I echo what the other panelists said. There's also the federal program, the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. And that was that was in the early 90s. And the original program, the Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR, which you might all know already, came about because there was a gentleman who went to the National Science Foundation, and he saw lots of money going to researchers, to national labs and things. And he thought the small business had to be part of it. And so they started this program where there's a set aside of a percentage of that budget. Well, in the 90s, the STTR program came about, and they realized all of the amazing research that's going on at our universities. And I don't know, sometimes it's about getting a publication, it works, so let's put it on the shelf and let's look at the next problem or the next thing we're going for. And this is a way to encourage the universities to work with small businesses and say, let's get this out in the market, let's commercialize this. And that's kind of what this is. So that's one program that we work with and we support small businesses with, and to work with faculty to capitalize on all the great research you're doing.
Okay, so next week, or probably Monday, our office is going to announce a small grant program for faculty where they can apply for an amount of funding to allow them to approach industry and talk about possibilities. And so my question for you is, what's the best way for faculty to reach out and identify meaningful partnerships while considering that the commercial entities are going to have goals for their businesses? And so how do faculty think about those interactions?
I guess I'll start. I would definitely say that most business owners or professionals, they are going to be, they're never going to hesitate to sit down and have a lunch with you, right? So if you, I guess if we're talking about how do you find those companies that are doing applicable things, that may take a little bit of market research. Looking around at trade organizations, for example, if you know of some trade organizations within your area of expertise, they very likely are going to have connections that can help you to find companies that could have applicable areas of interest and connections and things. But again, if you business owners are always looking for business opportunities, and so I think if you can maybe find some of those connections, they're not going to hesitate to talk to you.
I'm going to jump in here, Christian, before you say something. One of the things, and Mike, I think you brought up a really good point about how do we find those types of things. I also wanted to make USU faculty aware, as part of this, USU has recently purchased access to a software called First Ignite. And I'll let Christian explain to you what First Ignite can do.
Great, thanks. So that was first on my list, actually. Let's talk about tactical things we can do as faculty members. So First Ignite, well, let me jump back really quickly. Under the direction of Vice President Rowe, we've created a new organization of research, innovation, and impact, looking at how do we create impact, how do we get these technologies out into the world. And part of that new organization is a subscription to the software called AI software, First Ignite. First Ignite, it's a market analysis. So what we can do, we can take a description of, we can take a whole patent, we put it into the AI tool. AI tool will scan the market, look for understanding what that technology is, identify particular markets that this would fit into, go through and analyze that market and split it, and then give us a list of particular contacts and industry partners we can work with names and emails and contact information. What this does, it helps us understand where this technology might fit within the market, so we know kind of that problem we talked about on how to address and reach out. We can use this tool to also kind of identify specific people. And so having this personal interaction, not just sending an email to information at company XYZ, but an actual person and understanding why they might be interested. And then we can tailor our message to that individual. So that's one of the new tools we have. It's very We've just had it for a few months. I saw Hannah in here. We love to use it. It's a really fun tool to play with. But also, we've actually seen results within these first 2 months of using it. We've had set up multiple conversations. We've had industry members and faculty members have these conversations and talking about the technology, talking about solutions and the problems that need to be solved. The other one I was thinking about is you faculty members have wonderful students. These students have grown, they've gone into the marketplace, they're working at companies. Likely they're working at companies within their field of study. And so reach out to your previous students. That was this cell culture opportunity I talked about. One of the future, Justin, one of your students is at this company. And so reached out and they created this funding opportunity, and this research project is going to translate into this media that this company's going to use to commercialize some great media. Other students are going to be using that. So that opens up doors there. And then also many large companies publish their research needs. They recognize it's in their best interest to publish these needs out so they can find these partnerships. So there's a lot of resources. So come talk to us in the Tech Transfer Office, our industry relations. We'd love to talk and to help find those relationships.
Thanks. So I just want to echo a lot of what's already been stated, but I also want to include that business is relational, and it has to be a piece where you want to work with the person in industry, and the person in industry wants to work with you. And the only way that happens is showing up and meeting people and just talking with them. And that takes time to develop those relationships, but it's in developing those relationships that you can hear true problems that people are having in their business. And in that, as researchers, as scientists, as faculty, we're creative thinkers. That's just who we are. And it's in that creativity that you're able to see what the adjacent possible is and how your technology can be applied in a new way to solve this problem that this person's facing. And that's not to say, don't become a hammer and think everything's a nail. So, you got to look at the problem and say, hey, can I actually bring true value here? And if so, how am I going to work with this individual and become their friend, and they'll want to work with me and apply this technology effectively.
Okay, next time I'll just, when I have the mic, I'll keep it. So there's two examples I wanted to quickly give you. There's a company that we work with, and they were at a battery conference. They were into batteries, they were doing it. They happened to meet a researcher there, happened to both be from Utah, here at One Utah University. The company was here, and they started talking about battery technology and what they were trying to do. Those two have now come together and have worked on several projects, and through the SBIR and STTR programs, they've gotten quite a bit of money by doing this battery technology. So they went to a conference with a similar interest. So similar, like what Charlie said, there has to be a relationship there, right? So it has to be something that you're both interested in. So that's one example I wanted to give you. And then secondly, there's SBIR.gov, and I'm happy to help anyone navigate that, but you can go on and see other awards that have been given. The NIH also does Net Reporter. Many of you may know about that. But you can go on and see what other people are working on. And with SBIR.gov, I can put in keywords, and it will show me the awards that have been given. I get the PI's name. I also get the business contact name, and oh, they're working on something that I'm interested in. You could possibly collaborate. You can also pull up at Utah State University and see all of the projects that you have received, awards you've received. It just gives you, there's a lot of things out there. And so it is about relationships, finding the right person, making a connection. There's so many opportunities.
For the panelists, we're going to skip to the last question, okay? Just in case you have it on your sheet. Senator Millner really has us thinking about the Utah innovation ecosystem. And so as that continues to grow, let's talk about opportunities and trends that you might be seeing from your perspective. And particularly spaces along that continuum where universities and industry might find good partnerships. So.
Okay, I have the mic. I'm going to keep it this time. Is that all right? So I think with the Nucleus Institute and what we're trying to do is there's really some exciting opportunities that are going to be coming up We are like a startup. We don't have everything figured out. There's a big vision. You can see from Senator Millner, Jefferson Moss, others, there's a big vision of what it's going to be. But there's a lot of opportunities. And there's several different programs that will be there. For example, there's something called ProLab. There's some opportunities where students can have a project, like there's something in industry, there's a big problem that needs to be solved. And the students can come in, work with industry, and they'll be able to help solve that problem. So it's a way to get students involved. There's a lot of things that are coming down the pipe. So it's just like stay tuned, and we're just excited to be part of that.
Well, I guess we'll just go in order here. So I think one of the things that we've really seen here start to mature in Utah is our entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? With things and initiatives such as Silicon Slopes and just the reputation that we have developed as a state as being able to recruit top talent and build very substantial startup companies. That is something that 15, 20 years ago we really didn't have. And so having that entrepreneurial ecosystem mature provides greater opportunities for funding, for recognition, for being able to recruit needed talent. And I think that then also provides more opportunities coming for academia to then partner with that ecosystem. And so that's where initiatives like Nucleus become very important. And I think really within our research institutions, if we can continue to work to develop a culture of innovation where you do go out and look at work with industry to find market needs, that again can really help to tap into this system that really has developed quite effectively here.
Thanks, Mike. I'll speak very hyper locally. When I first started here in tech transfer, I was the vice president for the Cache County Entrepreneurial Council. It's dead, and it died. As I was president, we decided to close it down because we wouldn't get people to our meetings. But yet, what we're seeing now, we're seeing this innovation ecosystem. We are seeing entrepreneurs, and I think what I see is success leads to success. As Senator Millner kind of pointed out, Utah leads the nation in unicorns. And what we have these billionaires now that are in Utah that want to fund future billionaires, and they're looking to add to their portfolio. And so we're seeing what part of this innovation ecosystem I think was missing that we're getting to be now. We're seeing more and more funding stay in Utah and stay within our small companies and our entrepreneurial communities. And so as they're more successful, then that creates more successes for others and more investment opportunities. We're seeing Epic Ventures started a new multi-$100 million fund geared around seed and early stage funding. So this valley of death is being not solved, but it's being addressed here in Utah. And Utah's branding itself as a startup state. We have an entrepreneur residence in the state now. We have forms and plans and approvals are a lot faster. So the state of Utah is actually encouraging and helping this entrepreneurial ecosystem to come. And so we as universities are also developing great technologies. And so as Mike mentioned, as Linda mentioned, putting these two together creates a wonderful ecosystem. It is flourishing, it is growing, and it's wonderful to see.
I think that in addition to everything that everyone else has said, is the biggest trend I've seen is young, hungry entrepreneurs coming through and looking, specifically with me, we see young, hungry entrepreneurs every week presenting their startup. And what they need is support from wise, faculty members and industry members to help them support them in their journey. These students are hungry and are ready to put in work in order to make this successful, and all they need is the supporting infrastructure to climb that ladder. So I think the better that we can do to support them and give them the necessary resources, the more success we're going to see in the state.
Well, let's give our panel a big round of applause. Thank you all for your insights, and we're going to have the pitch competition now where this esteemed group is going to serve as our judges, I understand. And so please feel free to go back to your table. Again, thank you. Okay, so this is the new part of the Research Summit that we're very excited about. And so we have 6 companies, each of which will be given 3 minutes to make a pitch. There will then be 2 minutes for the judges to ask questions. Our groups, I will be monitoring time. So for those of you who are competing, I'm monitoring and Cam is monitoring. And so we'll be on either side. So one of us will help you move on if things keep going too long. Our judges will then afterward determine a first place and a second place entity, and there are cash prizes, $1,000 to the winner and $500 for the second place. And so with that, I am going to call up, and by the way, I'm going to leave the big handheld mic here on, and so the person who's coming up to pitch, just go ahead and grab it and take off. And so our first industry group is going to be from Intactus BioCorp. So, Daniel, take it away.
So I like to start with the problem, which is that the AI ML industry is growing so quickly and consumes so much energy that there's not enough electricity on Earth to sustain its growth, right? So left unchecked, 15 years from now, you couldn't turn on the light bulbs in your house because AI ML would consume all of the energy on Earth. What that translates to today is that companies like Meta, OpenAI, AWS, they cannot scale their data centers to match business demands because nobody can power them. Meanwhile, step by step by step, evolution has turned the human brain into the most capable and energy efficient computer possible under the laws of thermodynamics. So like I drove here and using a computer better than a Tesla, I'm talking to you with a computer better than a ChatGPT, and for me today, at least so far, it's running off of pretty much some Taco Bell I got on the way over. So what do we do with that idea, right? So the first thing you do is you put together a team. So myself, I have a PhD I got on a National Science Fellowship, 14 years of experience at the intersection of machine learning and tissue engineering. Just to highlight a few other people, Dana, she's a Harvard-trained neurotech engineer. Travis built the first ever complete neural cell map, phenotypically complete neural cell map at Recursion Pharmaceuticals. Jordan built the world's 30th largest supercomputer, and the group together has over 800 million in successful exits. But really what's important is that we have deep experience in artificial intelligence and neuroscience and neurotech. So together, we have built a biocomputer. What this is a 3D bioprinted neural tissue derived from stem cells. We built a custom brain-machine bioreactor that allows for media controls and stimulation and recording of neural signals from that tissue concurrently. And we built mixed biological and silicon neural networks where the compute occurs both across the neural and silicon substrates. Together, what we've done in one of our use cases is we actually trained that tissue, you can see on this slide, to control its own bioreactor for 21 days. So basically, we told it, this spike pattern correlates to getting nutrients. If you give us that spike pattern, you get nutrients. And it did so successfully for about 3 weeks until we finished the study.
30 seconds.
Great. So where we're at now is we've built a generalized biocomputation platform. It automatically takes your data set, converts it into neural spikes, and records it, interprets it with a couple different machine learning formats. And what we're really looking for is collaborators in the university. If I were to say one specific thing, it would be we're looking for an advisor/champion within the Utah University ecosystems to help us launch a gaming competition, actually. But thank you.
Judges, fire away. Oh, you need a mic.
I can talk loud, but either way. So, there we go. can you how does this address the power problem that you mentioned initially, and how scalable is this? I mean, and how far out before you could actually address an industry need with it?
Yeah, so we are at the point of commercialization where we are really, we have the first couple people in the pipeline. In terms of saving energy, essentially how it works is rather than performing, millions of energy intensive computations in silico in a transformer context, you just send the data as neural spikes over and over and over and over and over to the tissue until the tissue gets a representation of how these spikes correlate to each other. So essentially it is replacing the transformer architecture from an AI/ML context.
So did I hear you say that you're at commercialization?
We have our first people in our biocomputation alpha waitlist. We have built the generalized biocomputation platform. So essentially we are, testing it. We're growing the cells right now to actually test a customer data set, but they're small models, and we're hoping to get a bunch more in the pipeline.
So then how will you make money? Who is your customer?
Yeah, so in the example of something we would like to do with say university or Utah State University collaborators, it would be like launch a biocomputation gaming challenge, maybe like $5,000 to the top team who's able to compute on our biochips. And then once they've built a program that functions on the biochip, they would get money from sales on the Play Store, the App Store. We would get money from hosting their systems, basically as a cloud compute provider.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next competitor is from Anziva Pharmaceuticals.
Thank you. Can I have a thumbs up if you can hear me? Thank you. And can I have a mental thumbs up if you're in pain right now? Any sort of pain, like neck, back, knee, arthritis? If you do, you're not the only one here. According to CDC, about 62 million Americans suffer through some sort of pain every single day. That's 1 in 4 people. So we have roughly about 80 people here. So 20 of us are in some sort of pain right now. And honestly, the only 2 options that any of us have for those sort of pain are pills that don't work and have side effects, or opioids that do more harm than good. At Anziva, we are changing that. We're developing non-invasive, non-opioid patches that deliver real targeted relief without the side effects and without addiction potential. And the way we are doing it is by combining proven drugs with the cutting-edge permeation enhancers. So they take the drug right where the pain lives. On your screens, you can see Genura. That's a knee pain patch. That targets about a $4 billion market. And unlike its competition, it actually moves with the body, and it supports active recovery and actually helps patients heal. We are located at Altitude Lab, which is one of the best incubators in the state, in my opinion. We are supported by some of the brilliant minds in the industry, and we are actively fundraising to bring this product to market. And we are not stopping there. We are making products for the ones that are in my pipeline. We're making for migraine and back pain and even for pediatric use, because the last thing we want to see our children who are suffering through pain is for them to have side effects. So Anziva is not just another pharmaceutical company. We are in business of having people get their lives back without the addiction and side effects that most of us see. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. As you think about kind of protecting your position within the market, what's your protection, your moat around your IP protection?
We have already filed a patent on this technology. So the IP is twofold. It's about the formulation itself, the recipe that enables the drug to cross the skin barrier, and also the construction of the patch. So this patch, unlike its competition in the market, is waterproof and it's flexible. So the patients can go for a hike or skiing or even swim, and the patch is not supposed to come off.
Where are you at in the FDA approval process, and what potential roadblocks do you face there from being able to actually bring the product to market?
Right now we are in FDA pre-sub stage, so we have an FDA pre-sub submission this Jan, and about 4 to 6 weeks after that we will have a meeting with them. And the potential roadblocks will be, we have two strategies to bring this to market. The first is OTC, and the other one is prescription. So the biggest roadblock would be that if FDA does not allow us to go into market as an OTC, even if we meet the concentration requirements, that will be a big roadblock that we have to cross to commercialize this as a prescription drug rather than OTC.
So can you talk more about the competitive landscape? Like what else is going on out there? Because I know there's patches you can just buy like over the counter, but you're talking about, is this stronger or what's the difference?
This takes the drug through the skin layers. So what's available in the market, like those Salon Pass or a few other patches, firstly, they were not designed for pain relief. They just give you a sensation that you're getting some sort of pain relief, but they're actually not. And some other patches like lidocaine that are available in the market were initially designed for PHN and PDN, which is post-hypertonic neuralgia. So anyone who has diabetes here, they know the sensation, the pain that you get in your fingers and joints. That's what it was designed for. It was never intended to cross the skin. That's what we are doing differently, that we are designing those patches to penetrate the skin.
Okay, thank you very much. This is fun. We should do this with faculty and research projects, right? Our next company is UV Sense.
Hi everyone, my name is Christina Schiffman. I am so happy to be here today. I actually came from the U. I'm sorry. I'm just a student there though, don't worry. But I love Utah. I'm from Utah. Sorry, let me go to my slide. But one thing that I do not like about Utah is that we lead the nation in skin cancer rates. But don't worry, it's not just a problem for Utah. There are actually more cases of skin cancer in the US than all other cancers combined. 1 in 5 Americans will get skin cancer by the age of 70, and there are 9,500 new diagnoses every single day. The largest culprit here is sun overexposure. 65% of melanoma cases are linked to sun overexposure, and 90% of non-melanoma skin cancer cases are linked to it. Skin cancer is incredibly burdensome, both for our country and for the individuals that have it. But it's also preventable. So that's where UV Sense comes in with our device, UV1. UV1 is a wearable, real-time UV exposure monitor that tracks an individual's outdoor UV exposure and lets them know when to get out of the sun before damage occurs. The real magic with our device is our ability to calculate UV max via a patent-pending algorithm. Basically, we can calculate how much time someone can spend in the sun before they begin to get sun damage. This is personalized based on their skin type, medical conditions, medications they take, and family history. That way, we can basically say, hey, time to get out of the sun before they get a sunburn that can ultimately lead to skin cancer. So we sell our device currently for $100, and we have about 81% hardware gross margin. We plan to roll out subscription plans in the future. Ultimately, over the course of 3 years, we'll have a over $300 customer lifetime value. So this past summer, we actually launched our device in a closed launch, and we sold out of all of our devices, which was really exciting. And currently, we're working on addressing a really key research gap that we found, which is combining behavioral science data about skin cancer with the real-time UV exposure data that UV1 offers. In the future, next May, we'll really launch a commercial grade version of the device and our subscription models. And then in 2027, we'll roll out in dermatology clinics. Our team is led by me, and we're supported by a handful of really awesome engineers and dermatologists. and we're looking for behavioral science researchers, and we're all really committed to one goal, which is preventing skin cancer, because we believe it makes sense to prevent skin cancer. UV sense. Thank you.
Okay, our judges.
Does the application take in data on like if you've applied sunscreen or other sort of sun blockers?
Yeah.
Like time in the sun?
Yes, it does. And then also like what you're wearing, where you might be wearing it, things like that.
So you mentioned there's the hard goods that use, and then also a subscription. Can you use it without the subscription, or is subscription required?
Yes, you can use it without a subscription. The subscription is to offer services that would allow you to have a dermatologist analyze your data, send that data to a dermatologist, so a more personal medical experience.
So I love that you said that you're looking for behavioral science researchers. So talk more about what that would look like. I mean, is it because if people are told to get out of the sun, will they? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, so we're really looking at what nudges are most important in helping people prevent their own skin cancer. I really like to use the kind of analogy. You had 1 million people buy the Fitbit, and then 90% of them put it in a drawer and never touched it again. And when we're dealing with something like skin cancer, and it's really easy to prevent it, So we want to work with behavioral science researchers to understand what nudges, what notifications, what metrics are going to be most valuable in helping people prevent skin cancer.
Can you tell me a little bit more about who your target market is? Who are you targeting? Is this just everybody, or do you have specific groups in mind?
Yeah, so we're working really well with 2 groups. So first off, we have a lot of research in the pipeline right now with melanoma survivors. So there's evidence to say that even if you've already had skin cancer, wearing a device like this can actually reduce your skin cancer, so you get it less in the future. And then another group that we're working really well with and that we're targeting is women who are already investing in their skin health. So women that already go to med spas, women who already purchase skincare products. So those 2 groups are kind of what we're launching with and working with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, I don't know. I think the judges got a tough job, right? We're halfway through this. So let's move on to our 4th company pitch. It's from Digibeat Health Monitor. Okay.
That's going to be hard to follow. So let's find the slide. Okay. So we are simplifying and scaling the cardiac screening and patient management. So I'm Clifford Steele, and as you can imagine, the problem is heart disease, right? It is the leading cause of death, and statistically speaking, over half of you here are living with some form of it. Yet, I assume there's almost no preventative screening that any of you have done, and that's because the real problem. So to have cardiac screening, you have to go to a cardiologist. Equipment is about $200K. It requires trained technicians because they're very sensitive to operation, and any misplacement gives poor readings, along with the specialists then to read those, and then the specialists to treat. And so that is what we are looking to automate through our system, and as you can see, expanding access to care. I personally lost my father to a heart attack while he was waiting for his cardiology appointment. And so I understand the pain points for the patients trying to get access and understand what's happening to them. And that is why simplifying it to the point that now primary care and family doctors are able to manage this early stage of the heart disease. The way we did it is both access to data. So as you can see, we've simplified it and made it so the operation is not nearly as sensitive through a special internal mapping that we perform. And then we also pair that with an augmented reality, so patients are guided through a self-exam into the home. So now we have the data needed to understand population health and really improve the treatment. So like medications and a lot of the treatment methods have half-lives that require like 2-week timelines before they really hit steady state. And so what this allows is like a data-driven understanding for the treatments and improve patient outcomes through that. We really focused on the value proposition for all of them, right? Patients, they get immediate access to care and much better outcomes. The providers actually increase their revenue because we shift the low complexity patients to primary care, and that allows them to increase their revenue while cardiologists are now able to focus more on the patients that really need immediate care. And so they have better outcomes and also have higher reimbursements. So we were able to do this through partnering with cardiologists and building a huge data set alongside our device, which is being used in that data study. And we're looking to partner with local research groups to really understand how patient populations are improving through the cardiac understanding.
Thank you.
So I was unclear. Who is your market? Are you selling to cardiologists, to primary care providers? Are you selling to? Is this a home use device?
So it starts at point of care. The primary one is going to be family doctors, right? And cardiologists also benefit from it because it's kind of like a triage for does this patient need further screening that's more expensive. But then if the patient has a condition, they are prescribed the device to bring home as they're undergoing treatment for cardiac conditions, and that's utilizing pre-existing billing codes.
So what's your next milestone technically to get to market?
So we did a pre-communication with the FDA, and they required, as part of our 510(k) submission, is a human factors testing with 15 patients showing that we are able to get the same results with lay users operating as we would expect from a physician. And then with those results, we can then do the 510(k). So we're about 18 months out from clearance after funding.
Can you just remind me, is this built off of like a model off of the existing patient population data, or how did you develop the underlying model, if you're like?
Yeah, so we gained access to about, I think it was 800,000 public data sets on ECG, PCG, different ones, and then we also did an equity partnership with cardiologists and a clinical research organization. And so they're doing 1,500 patient exams with our device alongside the gold standard, which is the echocardiogram. And from that, we've been able to develop the AI correlations for diagnostics and then also for the guidance and more measures that actually align with the treatment and workflow of the physicians.
Thank you so much. Okay, our next company needs to forgive me if I pronounce their company name wrong, but I'm going to say it as it's listed. EIEIO Incorporated.
The NIDCD says that speech delays are a growing problem. 1 in 14 kids have speech delays at this point. I've experienced this myself. I've got 3 kids who are autistic, and they've all had speech delays. Those speech delays, when they were diagnosed, the waiting list to get them the help that they needed were months long. Tried a number of different things, not with very good effect. And so we, my wife and myself, with her education, early childhood development, elementary education, combined with some of our friends and people that have worked with our children, BCBAs, SLPs, came up with EIEIO. And what that is, very simply,
we create targeted communication opportunities for kids while they're really young. And show them videos in order to really just show, here's how communication happens. I'm just going to show you a quick video.
And this is the site for milk. You open and close your hand. Lila, milk? Yes, milk. Good job, milk.
Okay, what you just saw there was my daughter, Lila. She, at that time, was waiting for her therapy to start, and she learned her first word, milk, within 24 hours. Really what this came down to, more than anything else, was through knowledge of best ABA practices and SLP practices, to focus in on one thing at a time, and to generalize it as fast as possible within a kid's attention span. So we created these videos that they can watch within about a minute, and then we immediately give them the opportunity to make that happen. Turned out that every time we released a new video for her, she learned the next word within about 24 hours. And this is going from zero communication to functional communication, 24 hours. We are early along with what we do, but what we're doing right now is building out a curriculum where we're using AI to personalize the individual needs of each kid as they hit developmental milestones. We will cater the content that both the parents are using to train their kids and the content that the kids are watching themselves. We're not trying to replace the work that SLPs do and ABA therapists do. We're trying to bridge the gap. And with that, we want to do that between diagnosis and therapy when it starts. Make sure that we're filling that critical window. That window is pretty narrow, that they're able to learn. And then we want to support parents between sessions because these things are proven that they have improper outcomes. Is that the end of it?
I was unclear. How are you delivering this service? Is this some sort of app, some sort of other program? And who is it delivered through? Like, what channels do you deliver it through?
Right now we're building this direct-to-consumer LMS and streaming platform. My background, I work at Fox. I build streaming applications of my day job, so building our own platform with AI personalization.
So can you talk more about like what a parent would do at home, like how this is different than like what the videos are? How does this reinforce what they're trying to do in their homes?
Yeah, parents, and especially when you get the diagnosis, you don't know what to do. You don't know the next best step. What we're doing is we find out, hey, this kid has this developmental milestone met. They don't have these. They're short here. So we help tailor our curriculum to those needs to say, hey, this kid doesn't understand object permanence, or they don't understand cause and effect yet. So we give them simple games, things that they can do through the daily routine that they're able to then do that training with their child as they're waiting for that therapy and guide them in the right direction.
We have time for one more question.
I was just unclear. Are the games a testing mechanism to identify where their deficit is, or is that the training mechanism to teach them?
That's the training mechanism to teach them. Evaluations come from just a simple milestone evaluation the CDC puts out. We've optimized it to where we know the kid's age level, we understand kind of the targets, and we ask a few targeted questions to say this is what the kid needs to learn.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're down to our last competitor today. The name of that company is Ogden & R.
The heart of a mining operation is the control center. It looks like this. Those are the operators. Those are hundreds of screens where monitor the mining activity. What's the problem? Data spread across multiple screens and dashboards and systems. And mining produces a lot of information in real time. Only can be interpreted by specialized personnel. What is the second problem? If you want to replicate these centers, it's very, very expensive. And reduce visibility, slow decision-making, and collaboration. My name is Eduardo. I'm the founder of Ogden XR. We create and develop solutions for mining companies and construction companies powered by immersive technologies. This is one of them. This is mixed reality. This is a copy of Keynote near Salt Lake City. And as you can see, this is my office and this is a replica. But what is more important here? We can set a point of interest on the model, and the user can trigger information from the model. But data doesn't live in the application. The information lives in a web platform. And if a user changes something in the web platform, it's going to be reflected immediately in real time, basically, in the model. In other words, what we achieved was a bridge between immersive technologies and third-party data. Our current solution transforms raw data into immersive visualizations, replacing complex dashboards with intuitive interfaces. And even non-technical people can understand the information. In other words, teams can engage with more data in real time, anytime, and anywhere. What is our vision further? Using data-driven models, we can optimize workflow. We can identify bottlenecks. With machine learning, we can actually predict operational risk. And why not automated anomaly detection tools we can create? Why we are here? Basically, with the USU expertise in data analysis and engineering, we can achieve that vision to create this bridge. And for researchers and students, we can team up and create a very powerful intersection between data science and spatial computing. Thank you.
So I saw the Kennecott mine that you had there. Have you developed this in partnership with them or with any other mining organization?
No, this is just a prototype. We are not talking with them yet because the prototype is at a very first level of development. So the idea is to show with more data, more information, something more functional for them. Because we are not want to spend the chance to knock the door of Kennecott and lose the opportunity in the Facebook chance, you know?
So will your customer be like big companies like that, and that's how you're going to make money, or explain more how you'll make money?
Yes. In the first, we would like to target mining operations because I have more experience in that area. I work in the mining industry for a very long time. But this is suitable for other industries. For example, aerospace. If you want to monitor the trajectory of the orbits of satellites, for example, you can see it in mixed reality and you can see monitor everything. And about the business model, we are thinking in layers of information. Okay, for example, in mining operation, we have a layer of operation, maintenance, public relationship, health, you name it. There's many. So we're going to charge for layers of information rather than devices or users, probably.
Time for one quick question.
So this data that you're presenting to the user in VR, how does it turn into actionable outcomes, I guess, for the base user that's like, I'm out in the mine and I see that this becomes inactive? Like, how is that applying to my decision making?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We are still trying to figure out this part. That's the reason. We have a very preliminary conversation with a mine in Chile. Actually, we have a milestone for June 2025 to show this working, for example. We are going to find out in that moment probably because, like somebody said before, you need to listen to the market. So this is not only about me or my capabilities or the USU capability. It's something that the market needs to give us some orientation about the product. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh boy, our judges have to have to figure this out. And so we're going to dismiss them for just a few minutes to have some discussion. And I want to say thank you to all the participants. While they're going off to determine the winners, just thank you all for being here. And thanks also to the Nucleus Institute for helping us to set this up and also providing the funding for the awards. And with that, I'd like to bring forward Charlie Ray, who's the Senior Associate for the Nucleus Fund. He was on our panel earlier. And I just want him to speak for a few minutes more about venture capital through the Nucleus Institute, and then we'll be ready to give our awards out.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to talk to you guys about venture capital. So maybe some of you don't actually know what venture capital is. So first I'll explain that, and what it really comes down to is a business model where you have wealthy individuals that contribute money into a fund or a venture capital fund. That money is then invested into early stage or non-public companies where, in our case, we go and invest around $250,000 checks into early stage seed startups. In exchange for that money, we get some equity percentage in that company. So the business model for venture capital groups traditionally revolves around, hey, we get equity in your company, and in 5 to 7 years, which is the traditional VC exit time, you're going to sell your company for X amount, or you're going to go public and we're going to be able to sell our stock on the public market. That is the basis of a venture capital model where we're trying to predict who is going to be successful, and we're going to make money off of your success. Us at the Nucleus Fund, we're a little bit different because we're what's called an evergreen fund. So as we deploy capital and that capital is returned to us when a company is successful, we end up redeploying it into the market. Most VCs that you interact with will not be an evergreen model. They will be based off of limited partners putting their money in, and then the fund returns that money back to limited partners for profit in exchange for basically providing capital to these startups. So given that, you might be wondering, hey, why would I want to engage with venture capital? When is it appropriate to? And that's a pretty complex question. When you're engaging with venture capital, you're basically setting on a timer for yourself of like, hey, in 5 to 7 years, I want to leave this company or sell it or move it into the market. So you have to be prepared to be on that timeline. Additionally, you want to be very considerate of who you're partnering with. Working with a venture capital group, a lot of times in a given round, you will have a lead investor. And so what a lead investor is say I'm raising a $3 million round for my startup. There will be one venture capital fund that might contribute $1.5 million of that total raise. And then you will have a bunch of other, maybe 4 or 5 other investors that contribute smaller checks to syndicate that full $3 million. However, the lead investor, whoever that one is contributing $1.5 million, will often take either a board position in the company or have some sort of more, hands-on approach to the startup because they've invested significant capital in it. So you want to be very considerate of who you're working with in this case, because this is a person that is going to directly impact your company past just deploying capital into it. This can be a positive relationship, and it can also be a very negative relationship. I've seen lots of companies make the wrong partner choice, and they end up getting, falling apart as a business, not because of their underlying technology or the actual founders that are starting it, but because there are relationship problems between the VC and startup that just don't work. So you want to be considerate from that perspective, but you also want to be considerate that a venture capital group provides more than just money. They also provide connections and expertise in areas that you very well may need. Us at the Nucleus Fund, our kind of expertise is, not only do we provide maybe more friendly terms than a lot of other venture capital groups may, but we're also a good source for finding other relationships to other VCs around the state.
And we also provide resources to get access to students at different universities and help facilitate those connections in whatever ways we can. So that being said, venture capital is one approach. There are lots of other approaches to starting your business and other ways to find money. That can involve things like angel groups, family funds. I mean, those are probably the biggest other ones at early stage companies. And those provide different hurdles, but can also provide other benefits. And really VC is if you're trying to grow a unicorn company, so something that's an exit at like $1 billion, something like that. Like think a big pharmaceutical company, think of energy, think of like large market companies. Those are VC approachable. If you're a smaller market or if you want this to be a lifelong company, VC might not be appropriate for you, and you might want to look at alternative funding routes.
We have the decision from the judges. Let's thank Charlie for those insights. Okay, so we have the information, if I don't put it in the wrong place here. So we are going to announce first the second place finisher who will walk out of here today with a not so small check for $500. Second place goes to Digibeat. Okay, we gotta do some photos here. A not so small check. Congratulations. Okay, and today's first place pitch winner is Enziva Pharmaceuticals. Thank you again to all our pitch presenters today. I heard several areas where I could think of overlap with USU research faculty, and so I hope in the final minutes after I'm done speaking, you'll reach out and connect. I know some USU people still standing along the back wall here. I encourage you to connect with these entrepreneurs. And so with that, I first want to thank the Nucleus Institute for their wonderful support of this event and helping to organize it and providing the funding for the awards. We really value your partnership, and just thank you for making the trip to Logan today. I would also once again like to thank Senator Millner and her team for coming up here today, and part of that was helped to be organized by USU's Institute of Government and Politics, and so thank you to those individuals for their contribution today. And with that, our program is complete. Thank you all for being here. There's still food and beverages out. You can sit a minute, enjoy the day if you like, look out at the football field. I don't know if practice is over yet or not. No, practice is not over yet, so you can go watch the USU team. And just thank you for being here.
Thank you.